Tonight, scores of bandits reportedly killed in a firefight with troops on the Safe-Funtua Road in Zamfara State as death toll in earlier attack on 2 councils in the state rises to 58. Yobe State government wraps up measures on Lassa fever detection and treatment as 14 active cases are managed by health authorities. Fire raises in Guru Central Market in Yobe State, destroying shops and goods estimated at millions of naira. Over 50 people killed and dozens more injured following an airstrike on a camp for displaced in northern Ethiopia.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's stock market begins the first trading week of 2022 with a strong rally, gains nearly 1.9 trillion naira in just 4 days.
And on sports news tonight, the African Cup of Nations takes center stage as Cameroon is set to host the continent's most glamorous football competition amidst COVID-19 pandemic on Sunday.
Scores of bandits are said to have been killed following exchange of gunfire with troops who were on patrol on the Safe-Funtua Road yesterday. It was gathered that bandits were sighted on their way to attack commuters on the road when the troops engaged them in a gun duel. Governor Bello Matawalle has visited the injured personnel today, assuring that the troops are determined to flush the bandits out of the state. Meanwhile, the death toll in the recent attack on Anka and Bukuyum local government areas of Zamfara State has risen to 58. The governor has also visited the areas to commiserate with the people.
This is Governor Bello Matawalle of Zamfara State in military fatigue being led into the Federal Medical Center, Gusau, to visit some of the security operatives who were wounded during the onslaught against bandits. Sources say the troops were on routine patrol when they came in contact with bandits who crossed the Safe-Funtua highway with the intention of attacking unsuspected commuters. They engaged the bandits in a gun battle that resulted in the killing of scores of bandits, with many of them said to have sustained injuries. During the visit, Governor Matawalle acknowledges the efforts of the security operatives, pledging to sustain the war on bandits.
There is operation that is ongoing along the Zaria Road in Safi, and we have neutralized a lot of bandits, and some of our soldiers were being injured, so I came to see them because they conveyed them from that place to this medical center. So we saw them, some of them are going to be operated. Alhamdulillah, all of them are okay, none of the soldiers were killed.
This incident comes after bandits unleashed terror in some rural communities, forcing scores of residents to flee to Bukuyum and Anka local government areas for safety. Traditional rulers of the affected communities give an account of what transpired during the raids.
Normally, you see, we have this kind of calamity. As far as we are concerned, it's from God Almighty, and we are sorry about it. The total we have in Anka is 22. The confirmed case death is 22.
That bandits entered one of my village called Korfadanya. They went that village and killed about 36 people, and they bombed their houses. That is what has happened.
Before his visit to Gusau, Governor Bello Matawalle also visited headquarters of Bukuyum and Anka local government areas amidst heavy ground and aerial security provided by the Nigerian Air Force.
We are here to assess the level of damage that has been done by the bandits and to assess what the government can be able to do for them. As I promised, we don't want to encourage IDPs. We are trying to form a team of security so that they should go along with these people that run away from their communities. We are going to deploy security agencies to go along with these people to their communities so that we shouldn't have any IDPs. And we are going to allow my Commissioner of Security and Humanitarian to stay behind so that to do all the necessary assessment before taking them back to their respective communities.
In addition to visiting those affected by the attacks, Governor Matawale also provides relief materials to them, reassuring them that government is doing everything to get them out of harm's way.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration will smoke out the bandits who killed over 200 residents in Zamfara communities. In a statement, the president describes the incident as an act of desperation by mass murderers who are under relentless pressure from the military. In his words, "In keeping with my commitment to tackle the monster of terrorism head-on, let me reassure these besieged communities and other Nigerians that this government will not abandon them to their fate because we are more than ever determined to get rid of these outlaws." He assured residents that the Army and the Air Force are working together to track and eliminate the perpetrators. Staying with security matters, but this time in Kwara State, where gunmen have kidnapped 5 persons in separate incidents in 2 local government areas. One of the victims is a retired deputy controller of the Nigeria Customs Service, Mohammed Zamfara, who was kidnapped on Thursday evening on his farm in Asa local government area. The Kwara State Police Command says efforts are ongoing to rescue the victim. The second incident occurred in Ikiti local government area of the state, where a mechanic, his pregnant wife, his apprentice and his twin brother were kidnapped. It was gathered that the mechanic's wife has been released, but the kidnappers are said to be demanding for 10 million naira ransom for the other victims. Lassa fever is a major public health concern in Nigeria and has claimed several lives, including health workers. Yobe State recorded 15 deaths last year, and there are 14 active cases currently being managed by health authorities. Our correspondent, Hajara Aliu, visits the Lassa isolation camp and brings us an update on the disease.
The first case of Lassa fever in Yobe State was reported in 2012, and since then, the number has risen. Records from the State Ministry of Health indicates that there are 14 active cases as at Tuesday, January 4, 2022, and most cases are within the active age group between 18 and 45.
Most and difficult aspect of Lassa fever is that people are reporting late. We have even probable death. In Tabawale, we have about 6 probable deaths before we know. In Toro, we have 4 people that died before we know, before we know when Apara it was Lassa. So it was really, that is a case that's giving us a lot of concern in managing Lassa in Yobe State.
Inside the Lassa fever isolation camp in Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Teaching Hospital are patients receiving care, including a pregnant woman. These machines are used for identifying and managing complications, which often occur in patients.
The cases that we are seeing here are actually moderate and severe cases. They are the ones that we are usually seeing and admitting and managing. So those cases, especially the severe, they do come with complications, including bleeding. Some would come with organ failure. It can be multi-organ failure, but commoner is acute kidney failure. We do see that.
According to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, the nation's weather situation between November and February, especially in the northern parts of the country, worsens the spread of Lassa fever. The center is already engaging states on the best approach to manage the disease.
We are quite worried about Lassa fever. This is the season for Lassa fever. We had issued advisories and started to help our typical high-burden states to prepare. And we continue to get reports of new Lassa fever cases.
More than 20 suspected Lassa samples are received and processed here on a daily basis. And in less than 24 hours, the results are known. The new ATBU research laboratory, located at the teaching hospital, is a great milestone in detecting cases of Lassa fever because in the past, samples had to be taken to Ira, Edo State or Abuja for testing, and sometimes it takes up to a week to know the outcome. This is expected to improve the response time for any outbreak of the disease in the state and the northeast. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
Traders at the popular Nguru Central Market in Yobe State are devastated after a fire incident destroyed many of their shops. The chairman of Nguru local government area, Madu Kachala, told us that there was no life lost, but many businesses were severely affected. Nguru is one of the most populous local government areas in Yobe State. The cause of the fire is still unclear, but eyewitnesses said the blaze might have been caused by illegal electrical connections. Commiserating with the traders, the governor, Mai Malabuni, describes the incident as a yearly occurrence that has continued to rob traders of their means of livelihood. He says he has directed the State Emergency Management Agency to assess the damage and furnish government with the details. Hazy and windy weather season, known in Nigeria as Harmattan, is taking its toll on the health of some residents across the northern part of the country. The effects on the body is flaky, dry skin, chapped lips, thinning hair, dehydration, and sometimes respiratory problems. Our next report looks at the impact of the current weather condition and precautionary steps to stay safe this season.
It's that time of the year, Harmattan, the season that comes with the dry, cold and dusty wind, which causes respiratory problems. Already, most parts of the country are deep in the dry season, which usually runs from November to February. Aside from the poor visibility, activities of residents in places like Jos, the Plateau State capital, are mostly affected, with most people putting on warm clothing to prevent cold and any other related respiratory infections.
We don't dress to impress at this season, at this time, because of the weather. We have to dress according to the weather so that we protect ourselves from the extreme cold.
My ribs were paining me, but thank God, after taking some azithromycin for 5 days, and I took anti-malaria for 2 days, I think I'm feeling better.
The Nigerian Meteorological Agency had warned of a possible rise in temperature in some parts of the country, advising residents in various parts of the country to take precautionary steps to avoid respiratory ailments. Medical practitioners agree that the season comes with health implications.
This is a period that we see a lot of people having a frequency of nose bleeding increases around this period, and then also it also has effect on the eyes, because of the wind carrying a lot of particles, it could irritate the eyes.
The use of face masks will help in preventing not only COVID-19 now, but other respiratory viruses that can cause common cold, and in addition it will protect against the dust, and especially for the asthmatic, because they have increasing attacks. So regular use of face masks is going to be very, very effective and very useful and protective.
Aside from respiratory problems, the season tends to spread other diseases, including meningitis.
We've also started to prepare states and we provided information about the risk of cerebrospinal meningitis, which again is another condition that tends to have increasing number of cases this time of the year, when it's dry, when it's dusty, when it starts to get cold because of the Harmattan wind blowing from the north.
As the Harmattan persists, citizens are advised to practice precautionary steps to reduce the impact of the health hazard caused by the dry, windy season.
In part two, after the break, Vaccine hesitancy hampers goal of inoculating at least 40% of the eligible population by next month and 70% by the end of the year. That's in a moment. Join us again. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Scores of bandits reportedly killed in a firefight with troops on the Safe-Funtua Road in Zamfara State as death toll in earlier attack on 2 councils in the state rises to 58. Bauchi State government ramps up measures on Lassa fever detection and treatment as 14 active cases are managed by health authorities. Fire raises in Nguru Central Market in Yobe State, destroying shops and goods estimated at millions of naira. Over 50 people killed and dozens more injured following an airstrike on a camp for displaced in northern Ethiopia. Nigeria's hope to administer COVID-19 vaccines on at least 40% of the population by the end of February and 70% by the end of the year is experiencing serious challenges as vaccine hesitancy continues in many states. Figures from the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, which is the government agency in charge of vaccination, show that only 7 out of the 36 states have so far vaccinated above 10% of their targeted population. So far, Nigeria has fully vaccinated 4.56 million people, representing 2.2% of the targeted population as at January the 5th.
The federal government flagged off a nationwide mass vaccination campaign in November 2021 to scale up the country's COVID-19 response. The exercise is part of efforts to vaccinate at least 40% of the eligible population by the end of February 2022 and 70% by the end of the year. To achieve this target, the government expanded the COVID-19 vaccination network to increase access to the vaccines.
We have now even expanded the scope in terms of the number of health facilities that now have the vaccines. We have now involved the private sector, but beyond that, we have also established mass vaccination sites. I'm sure you can go around and see some of these mass vaccination sites, including mobile sites. This is a testament to the fact that the vaccines are now available. So we are now pushing hard into the interior to make sure that every single person, no matter where they are, is not left behind in terms of their access to vaccines.
Notwithstanding the modalities in place, including the deployment of mobile teams to vaccinate people in public places, statistics from the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency show that Nigeria is not even close to its COVID-19 vaccination target. For instance, only 7 states have achieved between 10 to 31% of their targeted population. Only states like Nasarawa, Jigawa, Ogun, Oyo and Kwara seem to be on track. There are many challenges causing delays, but vaccine hesitancy remains a major barrier.
The biggest challenge that we face is when you come across a person that is literate, exhibiting the habit of hesitancy, refusing to believe in science, and refusing to accept this vaccine and the reality of the time. That is a source of challenge to all of us, particularly and most importantly, our professional senior colleagues in the health industry.
We are getting more vaccines. As I'm talking to you today, we have enough to vaccinate as many as we can. So we are waiting for people to come and get vaccinated. Before we are talking of the vaccines are not enough, but nowadays the vaccines are enough, but the people are hesitating.
So far, Nigeria has administered 15.3 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. 4.6 million people have also received their second jabs. This figure represents 2.2% of the targeted population, which is a far cry from the 40% target set for the end of February 2022.
As the 9th National Assembly gets set to resume from recess, one of the key activities they are expected to address is the ongoing Constitution amendment. So far, the 9th Assembly has held public hearings across the country to get citizens' input into the process. However, there are voices questioning the lawmakers' method of amending the Constitution and the financial cost to Nigerians. In this report, our correspondent, Linda Akibe, examines concerns on the method of constitution review and if previous alterations have served the best interest of the people.
It's been 21 years since the introduction of the 1999 Constitution. But after 3 amendments, Nigeria is still beset with a host of challenges and disagreements on the structure, governance, power relations, and even the continued existence of a Nigerian state. Some of the criminous issues in the 1999 Constitution include devolution of powers, federalism, system of policing, fiscal relations, electoral reforms, inclusive governance, and judicial reforms. These issues have led to calls for restructuring, outright secession, and referendum. There are also questions as regards the validity of the Constitution, as some argue that the 1999 Constitution is a product of a military decree and not the People's Constitution.
That idea is valid because if you look at it, the consultation was not actually from representative capacity. The military only consulted some experts, okay, to put that constitution together, even though the 1999 constitution is an offshoot of the 1979 constitution.
Since 1999, the 6th, 7th and 8th assemblies have successfully amended the constitution. They include amendments to enable a person sworn in as president or governor to complete the term of an elected president or governor, but disqualified from election to the same office for more than one more term. Amendments to make INEC financially and administratively independent. Reduction of age qualification for political officers. Financial autonomy to the National Assembly, state legislatures and state judiciary. But there are some highly sought-after amendments which were not signed by the President. They include devolution of powers, independent candidature, simplifying the processes for state creation, removal of presidential assent to constitution amendment bills.
After the processes of amendment, the clean copy will be sent to one man on whose powers it lies to determine whether all these processes that billions of naira has been spent will go through or not. And if the president says no, like we saw during the 4th alteration, and everything is gone.
The 9th National Assembly has taken the baton of amending the 1999 Constitution. Some of the issues up for amendment include gender equity, the federal structure in governance and power devolution, local government autonomy, public revenue, fiscal federalism and revenue allocation, state police, states and local government creation. But there are concerns about how far-reaching this round of constitution review will be in meeting the aspirations of Nigerians.
After amending the constitution 4 times, you still have a unitary formula democracy parading itself as a federalism.
The sum of 1 billion naira has been appropriated by the National Assembly in the 2022 budget for amending the constitution, an amount which has raised eyebrows.
Let's be honest, it costs a lot to go through the process of constitutional amendment. But because the outcome has not yielded the desired result, for me, I think that we have not gotten value for what we are doing.
Members can propose amendments to the Constitution by way of private member bills. Citizens can equally, sponsor amendments to the Constitution. It doesn't have to be a ritual that will cost so much as we have seen in the past.
Although views may differ on the method of amending the Constitution and the need for a brand new one or not, Many agree that Nigeria requires a constitution which will reflect the yearnings and aspirations of citizens. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Let's get some perspective on the subject, and joining us to discuss this all the way from the United Kingdom is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Jibrin Okutepa. A pleasure having you with us, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Melinda.
Now,
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Now, how crucial is the need for the amendment of the Constitution at this point in time?
Well, like you have seen from your intro, I think with the greatest respect to the National Assembly, I think we're embarking on the wasteful ventures, because no matter the number of amendments we have done to our Constitution, it has not gotten to a far-reaching level that is required. What do I mean? When you talk about Constitution and look at the preamble of Nigeria Constitution, it said, "We, the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hereby give to ourselves the following Constitution." We have questioned the legitimacy of the claim of the Constitution itself, that is a product by the people. Even the process being embarked upon now by members of the National Assembly cannot be, in strict sense of the word, be described as a product of the people. You talk about zonal hearings of this Constitution, a 6 geopolitical zone. Who are the people that populated the hearing venues of this Constitution? Speaking for myself, I see the various amendments being done to our Constitution as clearly political self-centered, not really touching the requirements and the needs of what Nigerian people required. We still have a federalism that is completely unitary in approach, in terms of our adjudicature, in terms of appointment of judicial officers. We still have one national judicial council doing appointment for federal and state legislature. When you talk about dispensation of justice, the political class have always succeeded in giving to themselves quick dispensation of justice by the amendment done to now limiting the number of days or months or number of days that political litigations are to end. But when it comes to other crucial issues of getting justice to the downtrodden Nigerian people, judgments and justice are kept completely in abeyance in a snail-paced movement. So speaking for myself, I think with respect, voting 1 billion naira for constitutional amendment that will end up in the kind of constitution we have that has concentrated powers in the hands of the power that be is just a waste of exercise, speaking for myself. Secondly, when we are talking about amending our constitution, we must also look at the character of Nigerian people. How many of us, even the little provisions of our constitution that talks about due process and how things are to be done, how many of the political leaders have respect for Nigerian constitution? Not to talk about Nigerian citizens themselves. In other words, the challenge of Nigerians are far much more deeper than constitutional amendment. Talk about devolution of power, giving power to the states. The states have power. They have taken away the power of the local government. I heard the president in your interview saying that when monies are to be given to local government, the chairmen are forced to collect less than the amount they are signing to collect.
But Mr. Okutepa, if I may,
yes.
what do you make of the criticism of the piecemeal method employed by the National Assembly in amending the Constitution? Now, instead of this method, what would you recommend?
Now, the piecemeal amendment to our Constitution, as I said, is to enrich with respect some political pockets. So I will recommend that if there is a need for an amendment to our Constitution at all, it should be wholesale and the people should be involved. right from the polling units, right from the ward, villages, hamlet, because Nigeria is a society with diversities of cultures and beliefs. So the kind of constitution that we have, for instance, that speaks lies of itself. For instance, we talk about Nigeria is a secular state, yet Nigerians believe in their religious more than even the law, believe in their religious leader more than the government of the day. So we need to think and find out for ourselves, do we need the kind of constitution that we have? Do we need the kind of representative that we have? Do we need the kind of political parties that we now have? And then do we need an all-powerful, almighty president and almighty governors as we have them today? Do we need all of those kind of unitary, centralized power that we have? These are questions that Nigerians at every strata and every level of our society should be given opportunities to make input, not the kind of ad hoc arrangement on what they call zonal level of hearing, and then being hijacked by political traders masquerading as our political leaders. So I do not think that, yes, Melinda, I'm with you.
Okay, but millions of naira has been spent on amending the constitution by different assemblies. So would you say Nigerians are having value for the money being spent?
Definitely not. But what is the value? For instance, there is an amendment, the one that provides for young people to rule and to run. And now, how many young people have now had the opportunity to vie for political offices, say as governor or senators, when indeed it is more expensive to run for political offices in Nigeria? Until we avoid the commercialization of running for political offices in Nigeria, and until we take away money politics from the politics of our people and begin to talk about people-centered ideologies, and we take away corruption and corrupt influences of running government and have a good and strong institutions, there is no amendment that can cure weak and very functional institutions. You talk about independence of INEC. With respect, I do not think that INEC, as it is or as it has been, is independent in the strict sense of the word. Yes, it's independent by name, but by actions, by decisions in the defense of litigations in court. If INEC is indeed independent and its authorities is challenged by power that be, why does it need to hire lawyers to come and defend the indefensible in our courts? So now, I think with respect, before you cut me short, Nigeria need honest and truthful leadership, not the kind of deceit we run in the name of federalism, in the name of government, and the people who go to offices are not accountable, because democracy and sovereignty does not belong to Nigerian people. That is where we need to do amendment of our character, amendment of our love for the nation. Do we indeed love Nigeria as a state, or do we have respect for Nigerian laws? These are things that the National Assembly should find a way, and we should go back to national orientation.
Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Jibrin Okutepa, a pleasure sharing your thoughts with us on the news at 10.
Thank you, Melinda. God bless Nigerians.
Amen. Now, over the years, the plight of pensioners in Nigeria has remained pathetic, as most of these senior citizens rarely get what is due to them after retirement. However, there has been improvement recently in government efforts to ease their plight. Our next report looks at the government efforts towards addressing pensioners' welfare.
Rest is sweet after labor is the motto of the Nigeria Union of Pensioners, a slogan that summarizes the wishes of these senior citizens after retirement. However, over the years, the plight of pensioners in Nigeria seems to be a far cry from the rest that they anticipated after retirement. At the local, state and federal government levels, Pension remittances continue to be a daunting challenge for the government, often leading to protests in some instances. A 2020 report by the National Pension Commission, for instance, reveals that many states in the country are yet to fully implement the contributory pension scheme. According to that report, only 6 states, namely Kaduna, Anambra, Ekiti, Ondo, Edo and Delta, plus the FCT, have fully implemented the scheme with regular and up-to-date remittances of pension contributions. However, in recent times, there seems to be some deliberate efforts to address the challenges faced by pensioners, especially at the federal level. A total of 48 billion naira was released in 2021 for the payment of accrued pension rights for retirees of Treasury-funded ministries, departments and agencies of the federal government. This is besides the payment of over 15 billion naira pension backlog of some defunct agencies, namely the Nigeria Reinsurance Corporation, the Nigeria Airways and New Nigeria Newspapers.
PTAD has in real fact improved the economic life and livelihoods and the welfare of thousands of pensioners under the defined benefit scheme. And this is true because they have been able to reinstate over 40,000 pensioners previously dropped from the payroll or who have never received pension currently on the payroll.
Most recently, too, the Pension Transitional Arrangements Directorate, PTAD, has also come up with initiatives to ensure that pensioners get what is due to them.
Over 20,000 eligible pensioners who were hitherto not on payroll have been enrolled. 18,046 pensioners comprising of ex-workers of defunct and privatized agencies who had also hitherto not been considered for pension were also enrolled.
At a news conference to mark the 2021 World Pensioners Day in Abuja, the Nigeria Union of Pensioners condemned the maltreatment of its members by some state governments. The union wants the federal government to review their monthly pension, an exercise they say is long overdue.
It is very pertinent for me at this juncture to call on the federal and the state governments to rise up to the occasion by complying with the constitutional provisions of sections 1733 and 2103 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which stipulates a 5-year pension increase for state pensioners, or together with any workers' salary review, whichever is earlier.
Government retirees who are usually 60 years and above have used their productive years in service for the country, and now many of them need something to fall back on, such a support that the various pension schemes aim to provide, if they are diligently implemented by governments at all levels.
To promote continued safety on the waterways in Niger State, the Hydropower Producing Areas Development Commission, HYPODEC, has donated life jackets to some communities. This comes on the heels of a recent boat mishap which claimed 7 lives, 3 of them members of the same family in Zagil village.
We are here in the Jigri village to condole the community on the recent water mishaps they had, where about 7 members of the community lost their lives in the river. And we have used the opportunity of condoling them to call on them to start using life jackets whenever they are traveling on the river. And we have brought a significant number of the life jackets for the community, which we hope they will utilize. And we have used the opportunity to inform them the advantage of using the life jacket, which is to save the lives of even those that are unable to swim. Therefore, we have urged them to use it whenever any of their people is traveling on the river.
To education now. One of the 20 newly licensed private universities, Capital City University, Kano, has hit the ground running with the inauguration of its maiden governing council. The university, which was licensed in August last year, has appointed the Emir of Zauzau, His Royal Highness Alhaji Nuhu Bamali, as the pioneer chancellor. Our correspondent Abubakar Saliu has this report.
Gathered in this hall are people drawn from different walks of life to witness the inauguration of the Governing Council of Capital City University in Kano State. The university, located in Kano Metropolis, is equipped with state-of-the-art facilities to train science and information technology-based students in entrepreneurship and skills that will make them relevant in the labor market. The university aims to provide sound and innovative academic and extracurricular programs. The sponsors believe that the university will produce some of the best professionals in the country.
The spirit behind the establishment of Capital City University is to make higher education not only accessible, but also of the highest quality and highest standard in character and learning.
The university is a conventional model with innovative setup in terms of structure and content. This institution is geared towards producing a generation of future leaders with entrepreneurial skill suitable for job creation and problem solving.
The Emir of Zazzau, His Royal Highness Alhaji Ahmed Nuhu Bamali, is the pioneer chancellor of the university, and he believes that education remains the only solution to the socio-economic challenges bedeviling the country.
The gradual advancement of situation in organized crimes that is threatening the socio-economic and political stability of our dear nation is very frightening to every citizen. One of the major factors promoting this menace is our collective failure to place education as a priority to larger segment of the society on high premium in order to develop quality human capital that will be agents of positive change and development.
The council is promising that the proliferation of private universities will not compromise the standard of public institutions, but rather strengthen them through healthy competitions.
But what's happening in the world of business? Here's Teniola Shobowali.
Thanks a lot, Melinda. Well, it's some good news. The domestic bourse kicks off 2022 on a positive note as both the all-share index and the equities capitalization re-entered the 43,000 points and the 23 trillion naira level within the week. The main indicator of equities performance jumped by 2.66%, while the market cap surged by nearly 6%, gaining almost 1.9 trillion naira in just 4 days. The gains recorded within the week are largely credited to investors' interest in the shares of Airtel Nigeria, Boa Cement, Boa Foods, as well as some Tier 1 bank stocks. Sectoral performance was slightly mixed as the banking, industrial goods, as well as the oil counters of listed equities ended in the green, while the consumer goods and insurance sector closed in the red. Academy Press led a pack of 39 gainers, up 20%. Zuno Assurances tops a list of 31 decliners, down by 17.78%, while the trio of Boa Foods, Wema Bank and Transcorp were major contributors to more than 2 billion shares traded this week. Meanwhile, at the unlisted securities market, the NASD OTC Securities Exchange also closed the week on a positive return as its index return increased by 0.43%. At the same time, its market capitalization closed higher at 631.72 billion naira as a result of positive movement in the price of some listed securities. However, total volume traded during the week fell by 99.94%, while total value traded during the week decreased by 99.88% against the 1.93 billion naira value recorded last week. Meanwhile, Central Securities Clearance System PLC emerged as top among the three most traded securities by volume. On the other hand, at the foreign exchange market, trading activity at the FMDQ exchange closed negative this week as the total turnover of transactions carried out at the FX spot forwards and futures markets fell by 19.42% to $511.46 million as at January the 7th. A further analysis of trading results shows that total value of transactions at the FX spot market decreased by 16.79% to $348.64 million, while the FX derivatives market turnover dropped by 24.53% to $162.81 million. Similarly, the Naira dropped by 0.36% to 419 Naira 16 kobo against the dollar at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange window of the Forex market. As the month of January enters the second week, let's bring you some of the things to expect from Nigeria's financial market in the coming days. As we start with the central bank, which is expected to roll over 77.61 billion naira worth of treasury bills maturities to participants at next week's primary market auction. At the same time, inflows of 60 billion naira from OMO maturities is expected to at fixed income, and analysts expect activity to be weak depending on the market's liquidity situation. Meanwhile, investors are awaiting the publication of first quarter 2022 FGN bond issuance calendar, expected to be released by the Debt Management Office, which would give clarity on the execution of the FG's domestic borrowing plan for this year. And lastly, at the equities market, the full-year financial results and dividend announcements by listed companies for 2021 are expected to trickle in from next week, and this is expected to support the current positive investors' sentiment in the equities market. The federal government says it plans to revoke Section 56 of Nigeria's labor law, which makes it illegal for women to work in the mines. This was contained in Volume 2 of the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. The section of the NDP indicates that the share of women in the mining labor force is 25 to 35%, while the government plans to move it to 50% by 2025. In addition, the government also plans to establish a women's fund to support their development in the mining industry. And that's business news tonight. I'm Teniola Shuboale. It's back to Melinda for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Teniola. And for what's happening in the world of sports, here's Victor Matthias.
Many thanks, Melinda, and welcome to Sports News. Cameroon is set to host African Cup of Nations for the first time in 50 years on Sunday. The Central African country has built and renovated more than 30 stadia and training pitches in the build-up to the 24 tournament, which will take place in Yaoundé, Douala, Garoua, Bafoussam, and Limbe.
After two postponements owing to the COVID-19 outbreak, the 33rd edition of the AFCON Cup of Nations begins Sunday in Cameroon. The African Cup of Nations has suffered several hiccups, with the most critical being calls for its shift by top European clubs citing the timing of the competition, which is in the thick of the European League season. This has instigated the club versus country row, where Premier League clubs threaten to withhold African players heading for the tournament.
If you are playing for your country, the likes of Adebayo, Samuel Eto'o, of players of Didier Drogba and all of these players could not be stopped from playing at the African Cup of Nations. If you make a case for yourself and ask your club, you'd love to represent your nation. There's nothing as important as that.
Most of the countries, including the Super Eagles of Nigeria, have been affected by the virus infections and injuries to key players.
Cameroon has Bufasam, they have Garoua, they have Yaoundé, there are two venues in Yaoundé, there's Douala, and of course Limbe. I still expect, it's Africa. These things happen, and we'll somehow find one way or the other. Don't forget that in 2019, Cameroon were supposed to host the same tournament. For one reason or the other, they expanded the tournament to 24. They did not host. And now they're hosting in January because they cannot host in the summer because of tropical rainfall or rain in the tropics. But let's just cross our fingers. It's our tournament. Whether we like it or not, it's here. And whether it is a poor tournament or it's a good tournament, at the end of the day, what matters for me is the football.
How well these issues impact the quality and excitement of the Nations Cup is left to be seen when Cameroon face Burkina Faso in the opening game at the 60,000 capacity Yobe Stadium in Yaoundé on Sunday.
And for the first time in the history of the African Cup of Nations, all 52 matches of the competition will use the video assistant referee VAR in Cameroon starting on Sunday, January the 9th. Previously, CAF has used VAR starting from the quarterfinals. However, the African Football Governing Body says VAR will not only improve the image of refereeing but also produce world-class match officials. A list of 8 video assistant referees from 36 countries has been released. Now, champions of the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations will return home with a prize money of $5 million. The winner's prize money was increased from $4.5 million, representing an increase of about 11%. The competition's runners-up will get $2.7 million, up from $2.5 million, and that's an increase of 10%. The prize monies for the semi-finalists and the quarter-finalists were also increased, with the total sum of the increase on all prize monies being $1.85 million. CAF said the increase was in line with its commitment to rewarding merit performance and enhancing the status of the competition. The Confederation of African Football has announced the dates for the draw of Qatar 2022 FIFA World Cup African qualifiers. The Qatar 2022 FIFA World Cup African qualifiers will be conducted on Saturday, January the 22nd in Douala, Cameroon. 10 qualified teams will be divided into 2 levels based on the official FIFA ranking published in November 2021. The 5 highest-ranked teams will play against the 5 least-ranked teams. The Super Eagles of Nigeria have been seeded alongside Senegal, Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria. And that's a wrap on Sports News. I'm Victor Matthias. It's back to Melinda with the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Victor. On the international scene, aid workers in Ethiopia's Tigray say 56 people have been killed and dozens more injured in an airstrike on a camp for displaced people. Images on social media show people receiving treatment after the strike on a school in the town of Dedabit. Government forces have been fighting rebels in Tigray for over a year now in a war that has ended thousands of lives. While clashes on ground between Ethiopian military and the rebel alliance led by Tigrayans have temporarily stopped, airstrikes against rebel positions have continued. On Friday, the government announced the release of several high-profile opposition figures, including leaders of the rebel Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, TPLF. The Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, says the move was aimed at achieving national reconciliation and promoting unity. At least 21 people have died after heavy snow trapped them in their vehicles in northern Pakistan. The military is attempting to clear roads and rescue those still trapped near the hilltop town of Muri. Now, according to officials, around 1,000 vehicles were trapped on a highway during the blizzard. Muri is a mountain resort town north of the capital, Islamabad. More than 100,000 cars had entered Muri in recent days to see the unusually heavy snowfall. This caused a huge traffic on roads leading in and out of the town. More than 150,000 people in the United Kingdom have now died within 28 days of a positive COVID test since the pandemic began. A further 313 deaths were reported in the government's daily figures over the past 24 hours, taking the death toll to 150,057. Here's more on this and other developments from around the world on our COVID-19 Global Update.
The UK is the 7th country to pass 150,000 reported COVID deaths, after the United States, Brazil, India, Russia, Mexico and Peru. The country has seen a surge of cases linked to the Omicron variant of COVID-19 in recent weeks, though death rates have been lower than during previous waves of the disease. The government is focused on rolling out booster vaccinations, which have reached more than 60% of the population, rather than requiring a return to the lockdown measures seen earlier in the pandemic. Swedish Crown Princess Victoria has tested positive for COVID-19 and is said to be experiencing mild symptoms. Earlier, her parents, the King and Queen of Sweden, both also tested positive amid a mounting fourth wave of the virus, driven by the highly contagious Omicron variant that has seen the country repeatedly report record daily case numbers. In other developments, thousands of protesters have marched in several cities in Germany, calling for an end to restrictions against those who have not had a coronavirus vaccination. The Health Ministry says the country must revamp its COVID-19 vaccination strategy to tackle the Omicron variant and to ensure it can develop a new vaccine rapidly if it faces a more deadly coronavirus variant in the future. Hundreds of people have also gathered in Italy to protest against compulsory vaccinations for people over 50 and stricter rules for the unvaccinated. Under the new regulations, those who are unvaccinated will not be able to use public transport and sit at restaurants in Italy.
And the main news again. A significant number of bandits were reportedly killed today in a firefight with troops on the Safe-Funtua Road in Zamfara State, just as the death toll in an earlier attack on Bukuyum and Anka local government areas in the state rose to 58. Also today, fire razed Nguru Central Market in Yobe State, shops and goods estimated at millions of naira destroyed. I'm Melinda Akinlami. On behalf of the team, good night.